Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how much we love to take these deep dives into the stuff that really matters, and today we're talking about something that's pretty crucial to all of us: food. And specifically, we're looking at the challenges farmers face when it comes to protecting their crops.
Yeah, those challenges can be pretty intense.
And today we're going to be focusing on one company in particular that's using some really cool tech to help farmers out. Have you heard of Farmonaut?
I have. Yeah, they're doing some really interesting stuff with satellite imagery and AI.
Exactly. We'll get into the details of how their technology works a bit later. But first, we got to introduce the stars of the show, or rather, the villains of the story.
Ooh, this sounds
We're
intriguing.
talking about thrips,
Thrips, those tiny little
the
guys.
very same. And don't let their size fool you, they can cause some serious damage.
I've definitely underestimated them in the past, that's for sure.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of how Farmonaut is helping farmers combat these tiny terrors, let's start with the basics. What exactly are thrips?
Well, they're tiny insects, usually just a millimeter or two long, and they're often black or red, but their defining feature is their fringed wings. Actually, the name Thysanoptera comes from the Greek words for fringe and wings.
Ah, so that's where they get their name. Pretty descriptive.
Yeah, it is. And those wings aren't just for show. Thrips are actually pretty strong flyers, which helps them spread quickly from plant to plant.
So they're like tiny little crop-hopping tourists.
Ha! You could say that. And their mouth parts are specifically designed for piercing and sucking plant tissues. So they basically feed on the sap of plants, which can weaken the plants and make them more susceptible to diseases.
Okay, so we're talking about tiny bugs with a big appetite,
Mhm.
but just how much damage can they actually do?
More than you might think. They attack a huge variety of plants. We're talking everything from grapes to pomegranates to roses and even cotton.
Wow, they're not picky eaters at all. No wonder there's such a problem for farmers.
Right. And because they feed on so many different types of plants, it can be really hard to control them.
So it's not like you can just target one specific crop or area.
Exactly. They're pretty adaptable little creatures, which makes them even more of a challenge.
Well, this is definitely shaping up to be a fascinating deep dive.
Mm.
So we've got these tiny but mighty thrips that are wreaking havoc on all sorts of crops.
Yes, and their ability to fly and spread quickly only makes things worse. They can infest a whole field in no time.
Yikes. And I'm guessing that the damage they do isn't exactly pretty.
Not at all. It can really vary depending on the plant and the severity of the infestation. But some common signs include silvery or bronzed patches on leaves, distorted new growth, and scarring or discoloration on fruits.
So not only are they sucking the life out of the plants, but they're also making the produce less appealing to consumers.
Exactly. And that can have a big impact on a farmer's bottom line.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So we've established that thrips are a serious threat, but I'm curious to learn more about their life cycle and how they reproduce. Because I have a feeling that plays a role in how quickly they can spread and cause damage.
You're absolutely right. Their life cycle is actually one of the keys to understanding why they're such a formidable foe. So shall we dive into that next?
Let's do it. I'm ready to uncover the secrets of the thrips life cycle.
Okay, so get this. Their life cycle has 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult.
4 stages, huh?
Yep, and the crazy thing is, under the right conditions, they can go from egg to adult in just 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's insane. No wonder their populations can explode so quickly.
Right, it's like they're on fast forward.
So it's not just that they're causing damage, it's that they're multiplying at an alarming rate.
Exactly. And that makes them even more difficult to control. Because by the time you notice the damage, they've already laid a ton of eggs and the cycle just keeps repeating.
It's like a never-ending battle.
It can definitely feel that way. But there are ways to fight back, and that's where things get really interesting, especially when we start talking about Farmonaut and the technology they're using.
Okay, yes. I'm eager to hear more about how Farmonaut is tackling this thrips problem. But before we get into that, can we talk a bit more about the specific types of damage thrips can cause? I mean, what does a thrips infestation actually look like on a plant?
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, the damage can vary depending on the plant, but there are some common signs. On leaves, you might see silvery or bronzed patches, kind of like the leaf has been scratched.
I've definitely seen that before. I just never knew what caused it.
Yeah, it's pretty common. And it's basically where the thrips have been feeding and damaging the surface of the leaf, which disrupts the plant's ability to photosynthesize properly.
So it's not just that they're sucking the sap, they're actually messing with the plant's ability to produce energy.
Exactly. And that weakens the plant and makes it more susceptible to other problems. You might also see distorted new growth, where the leaves or stems are curled or twisted.
And what about on fruits? What kind of damage do they do there?
On fruits, you might see scarring or discoloration, which can make them less marketable.
Ah, so that's why sometimes you see those weird blemishes on fruits at the grocery store.
Yeah, it could be from thrips or other pests, but thrips are definitely a major culprit.
And I understand they can also transmit plant viruses, which adds another layer of complexity to the problem.
That's right. They can act as vectors carrying viruses from one plant to another as they feed, and this can lead to the spread of diseases, which can be devastating for crops.
Wow, so these tiny insects can really pack a punch? They're directly damaging the plants, spreading diseases, and making the produce less marketable. It's a triple threat.
Exactly, and that's why early detection and control are so important.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How do farmers typically detect thrips infestations? Is it just a matter of visually inspecting the crops?
Well, traditional methods of pest monitoring often involve visual inspections. But let's be real, thrips are tiny. It can be really hard to spot them with the naked eye, especially in the early stages of an infestation.
Right, you can't exactly walk through a field and count every single thrips.
Exactly. And by the time the damage is visible, it might be too late to effectively control the infestation.
So what's the solution? How can farmers get ahead of this problem?
Well, that's where Farmonaut comes in. They're using technology to revolutionize pest management, and it's pretty incredible stuff.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about Farmonaut and how they're using tech to fight thrips.
All right, so picture this Farmonaut uses satellites to monitor crops from space.
Wait, hold on, satellites? Like the ones that orbit the Earth?
Yep, those very same satellites. They use them to capture images of farm fields, and then they use AI and spectral analysis to detect subtle changes in plant health that indicate a possible thrips infestation.
You're telling me they can detect thrips from space. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But it's actually real. And it's working.
So how does it work exactly? What are they looking for in those satellite images?
So think about it this way. Plants reflect different wavelengths of light, and when a plant is stressed or damaged by something like, say, a thrips infestation, its reflectance pattern changes.
So it's like the plants are sending out an SOS signal that Farmonaut's satellites can pick up on.
Exactly. And these changes are so subtle that they're invisible to the naked eye. But Farmonaut's technology can detect them.
That's incredible. It's like having a superpower for seeing plant stress.
It really is. And this early detection is key because it allows farmers to take action before an infestation becomes widespread and causes serious damage.
So it's all about prevention rather than reaction.
Right, and that's a much more sustainable approach.
Okay, I'm really starting to see how powerful this technology is. But how does the information actually get from space to the farmer? I mean, it's not like the satellites are sending text messages.
No, not quite. But it's almost that easy. Farmonaut processes the satellite data using really sophisticated algorithms and machine learning models.
Algorithms and machine learning sounds high-tech.
It is. These models are trained to recognize the specific reflectance patterns associated with different types of pests and diseases.
So it's not just a matter of seeing that a plant is stressed. The system can actually identify the cause of the stress.
Exactly. And once the system identifies a potential problem, it alerts the farmer through a mobile app or a web-based platform.
So it's like a personalized pest alert system.
You got it. The farmer receives detailed information about the location and severity of the infestation, along with recommendations for appropriate control measures.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like having a virtual crop doctor on call 24/7.
It really is a game changer for farmers, especially when it comes to dealing with pests like thrips.
Okay, so let's get back to those thrips. Now that we know we have a potential problem, what can we actually do about it? Are we talking about spraying pesticides?
Well, pesticides are definitely one option, but there's a growing movement towards more sustainable pest management practices like integrated pest management or IPM.
I've heard of IPM. It's about taking a more holistic approach, right?
Exactly. IPM is all about using a combination of methods to manage pests in a way that minimizes environmental impact while maximizing effectiveness. It's about working with nature rather than against it.
And how does Farmonaut's technology fit into this IPM approach?
It plays a crucial role. Farmonaut's data allows farmers to make more informed decisions about when and where to implement specific control measures. So, for example, if the system detects a small localized thrips infestation, the farmer might be able to control it using targeted applications of organic insecticides.
So instead of spraying the entire field, they can focus their efforts on the specific areas that need it.
Exactly. This reduces the amount of pesticides used, which is good for the environment, human health, and the farmer's bottom line.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about those other IPM strategies like cultural and biological control? How do they fit into the picture?
They're super important. Cultural control methods are all about making the environment less hospitable to pests. For example, rotating crops can disrupt the thrips life cycle, making it harder for them to establish themselves. And keeping the fields free of weeds and debris eliminates potential hiding places.
So it's kind of like cleaning up your house to prevent pests from taking over.
That's a great analogy. And then there's biological control, which involves introducing natural enemies of thrips into the environment, like predatory mites and minute pirate bugs.
Those tiny warriors we talked about earlier.
Yep. And these beneficial insects can be very effective at controlling thrips populations naturally.
So instead of using chemical pesticides, we can enlist the help of nature's own pest control agents.
It's a win-win. And Farmonaut's technology can help with this as well. By monitoring the populations of both pests and beneficial insects, farmers can make more informed decisions about when and where to release biological control agents for maximum impact.
So it's like a strategic deployment based on real-time data.
Exactly. It's all about using the right tool at the right time in the right place.
Well, this has been an incredibly fascinating deep dive. I had no idea thrips were such a complex problem, or that there were so many innovative solutions being developed to combat them.
It's a whole world we rarely think about, but it's one that's vital to our food supply.
Absolutely. And it's clear that technology like Farmonaut's is playing a huge role in helping farmers protect their crops and produce the food we all rely on.
And the best part is that it's being done in a way that's good for the environment, too.
So the next time you're enjoying a delicious meal, think about all the hard work and innovation that went into producing those ingredients, and maybe give a little nod of thanks to the farmers and the technology that's helping them feed the world.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of thrips and sustainable agriculture. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious.